Good afternoon, everyone. We are Inside China Business. Good commentary here in Barron's. It dropped on Thursday night about the role that U.S. companies are playing that are operating here in China. And their objective here is to show that despite what we hear in much of the media about de-risking and diversifying away our trade dependency on China, moving supply chains around, that there's a really big story here on the demand side. What is often missed is how many U.S. companies are actually operating here in China right now, doing a lot of business, making a lot of money, and we are not going anywhere. Okay, here is where we are right now on the map. Qingdao is a coastal city in North China, and this is, let's zoom out, this is us. We're in Laoshan district. The ocean is right there. There are big mountain parks to our east and to the west here. And we're right now at the top of this shopping mall right here, Lions Mall. There's another big shopping mall across the street there and a much bigger one right over there. And there's a big office park in this area behind me, and there's a lot of shopping in the basement levels of those buildings. And so now we'll share the U.S. companies, the famous ones, that are within a 20-minute walk of where I'm standing right now. Not a 20-minute drive, a 20-minute walk. And you can't walk 20 minutes that way because that's the Pacific Ocean. So we're talking about the semicircle right here, 20 minutes in any direction. There are 3 McDonald's, 2 Dairy Queens, DQ, Pizza Hut, 5, Domino's Pizza, 2, Papa John's Pizza, 1, KFC, 4, Starbucks, 7. There are 7 Starbucks. This isn't Seattle or Portland. We're in the Laoshan district of Qingdao, China, and there are 7 Starbucks. So that's the restaurants. Clothing, there are 12 Nike stores, New Balance, 4, Levi Strauss, 4, North Face, Columbia, Ralph Lauren, 3 each. Under Armour is 5. There are at least 20 stores right here that sell Apple products, and there's even more than that for Samsung and Android devices. There's hundreds of restaurants here, and they all sell Coke and Pepsi, along with at least 80 that we know of convenience stores, 80 convenience stores, 4 large supermarkets, and 10 smaller ones, all selling Coke and Pepsi. Go into any supermarket or 7-Eleven, and you'll see shelves full of Kellogg's and M&M's and Hershey's and Frito-Lay and Procter & Gamble and everything else. There are 2 Tesla dealerships. The Ford shop is over there. And there are 5 movie theaters with screens that show, there's 60 screens that show Hollywood movies all the time. The point here is that China is the factory of the world, and it's causing problems for manufacturers back home, North America and Europe. But China is also the biggest consumer market in the world, and that causes a lot of problems for companies who aren't here. So just U.S. companies, there are nearly 2,000 U.S. affiliates here in China, which is more than we have in any European country or Japan or Korea, and even in the whole of South America, all of South America. These U.S. companies have over 1 million Chinese employees here. And in 2021, $472 billion in gross sales. Now, these sales in China by companies like these are 3 times more than the total exports from the United States to China. What's more, they do make a lot more money here in China than they do in richer and more developed countries. It's more than France, more than Germany, more than Japan. So the big consumer markets are here, and the profit margins are huge for the companies that are here selling to the consumers here. This is one of my favorite charts. I use this in my public speaking here sometimes, and it's a chart of the most recognizable brands, the most famous brands in the world. I show them to Chinese audiences, and I ask them, just look at the logo and tell me what the company does. How does this company make money? And it's shocking how well they do. There are a handful here they don't know very well. AXA, American Express, Accenture, they usually don't. Insurance companies and banks, but they get all the rest. And what's amazing is that usually I'm talking to audiences who are in their 30s or older. And every single one of these companies have come to China in their memory. These companies weren't here when they were born, or even most of the time in school. Starbucks came to China in 1999, for example. That isn't that long ago. And now there's 7 just in this neighborhood. Now just about everyone in China knows all these brands. They buy from them every day, and these companies have spent a lot of money and a lot of time to develop products for the China market. And the companies hired here in China 1 million people to sell their products to 1 billion people. The commentary from Barron's does touch on India. Here is India, and they make some strong economic points. India can. It's true that India can serve as a viable alternative to China for much of the low-cost labor. But the problem is on the demand side. China's population is just richer, and India spends less than a third of what Chinese consumers do. There are other concerns too, strong concerns that Western brands have in India and in other countries in the subcontinent. Subcontinent is India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh mainly. These are huge population centers, no doubt. But are they a good fit culturally with many of our brands and products? India is a Hindu country. They don't consume beef or dairy products. So consider all these restaurants that we mentioned before. Except for KFC, they all have a problem. Dan & Yogurt has a problem. Starbucks has a problem. M&M, Mars, and Hershey, they have a problem. They use milk chocolate. In order to compete in the India market, these brands will have to overhaul entire product lines. We're going to try, of course, but it's not going to be the low barrier for entry that we found when we came into China for the first time. We'll say this next part delicately, gently. The new markets in India and Bangladesh and Pakistan, are they going to be a good fit culturally for many of the top brands that we are bringing over from the United States and Europe? These brands have been successful in China and in Japan and in Korea. We're talking here about cosmetics brands, fragrances, products for personal care, for grooming. Coca-Cola is going to do fine in India. But what about Colgate-Palmolive? We simply don't know yet. It is true that India's middle class is growing very fast, growing faster than almost anywhere else ever. But between today and 2030, in China is going to add another 150 million new consumers. In just 6 years, China is going to have 150 million more consumers than exist today. So the companies that are here in China are going to capture those new markets just by standing still. And 150 million new consumers here is the equivalent of a new Germany and a new France combined. That's what's going to be added right here in China between today and 6 years from now. The Barron's commentary here makes some good points about supply chains and demand. It is sensible for U.S. companies to move some of the supply chains to South America, for example, for our customers in South America. So it's possible to source some of the supply needs outside China. But it's certainly impossible to replace Chinese demand. There's simply too many people here, there's too much money here, and there's too much money already invested for us to simply walk away. So we will not be walking away. No matter what politicians are saying on TV, no matter what business executives and analysts are saying on TV about de-risking or diversifying away from China. We cannot diversify away from 1 billion consumers. These are customers that we have already worked hard for. It's just words. And you can come to any city in China and see for yourself. Or you can go on Google Maps and see for yourself and ask, does it seem like we are diversifying away from China? Does it seem like companies are moving out of here? Or does it seem more like we're doubling down on the investments we've already made here? Thank you. I'll share now the Barron's piece on the following screens. Enjoy the weekend. Be good.